Welcome back to Success with Steven. My name is Steven Smith. On this channel, we discuss all things financial literacy. Back in 2024, when I initially started releasing videos on this YouTube channel, I made a video called How to Buy a Car with No Money and Bad Credit, and it had some practical tips and a few mindset shifts that helped people pull off something that honestly seemed impossible at the time. That video was my 30-second upload, and here we are now, somewhere around 450 videos later. Now, in that video, I briefly mentioned a company called Tradeline Supply Co, and ever since I've seen a lot of confusion and mixed opinions about what they actually do. So today, we're going to clarify any misconceptions, and I'm going to break down exactly who Tradeline Supply Company is and how their services work. I'll also discuss how people are using trade lines with limits as high as $50,000 or more to give their credit scores a temporary boost that can sometimes be 70 points or even greater than that. We'll talk about the kind of results that people are actually seeing. We'll also discuss the risk and what you need to understand before spending a dollar and the honest pros and cons based on real customer experiences. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how a $50,000 trade line can impact your credit profile and whether it's something that's actually worth it for you. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a trade line as it pertains to credit reporting? Well, a trade line is a record of an account that's listed on your credit report, like a credit card or a loan or a mortgage or even an auto loan. It contains details about your borrowing and repayment history, including the payment status, the balance, and the credit limit, which lenders use to determine your credit worthiness. There's also something called an authorized user trade line, which is a credit card account that a primary cardholder adds a person to, and that allows that person to use the card or be associated with the account for credit reporting purposes. This can help an authorized user build credit history by piggybacking on the primary cardholder's positive payment history and their long-standing account history, especially if the account has on-time payments and low credit utilization. However, the primary user's negative information, like a missed payment or a high balance, can also negatively impact the authorized user's credit score, so you want to always keep that in mind. So that means their positive history, the years of on-time payments, the low utilization, and the big credit limits could instantly improve your credit score. Now, this strategy has been around for a while now. In fact, it's been one of the oldest ways that people have built credit fast. Many parents would add their kids to their credit card accounts before they even turned 18 just to give them a head start. Tradeline Supply Company took the old school idea and turned it into a professional, legitimate business model. Tradeline Supply Company, often called Tradeline Supply Co, was founded in 2017 and they're based in San Diego, California. They specialize in connecting people who want to build or repair credit with people who have strong, established credit accounts. The company's mission is simple. They make trade lines accessible, affordable, and transparent. Unlike marketplaces or social media sellers, Tradeline Supply Co built an actual infrastructure with verified accounts, clear posting timelines, and secure payment processing. Everything happens on their official website, TradelineSupply.com, where users can browse available trade lines, see exact prices, credit limits, and even the card issuer before making a purchase. They emphasize education and compliance, and they're one of the few companies that openly explain how authorized user trade lines work, what the risks are, and what kind of outcome you can realistically expect. Their founder, Jeremy House, designed the company to bring transparency to a space that had been mostly underground, and it actually worked. They quickly became one of the largest, most reputable trade line providers in the United States. So why would anyone need trade lines in the first place? Well, let's be honest, building credit from scratch or rebuilding after past mistakes can be expensive. So if you're trying to qualify for a mortgage or auto loan and your credit file is too thin or your score is too low, you could pay a lot in interest or just be flat out denied. That's where trade lines come in. Tradeline Supply Company helps solve the problem of limited credit history and low scores caused by short credit age or high utilization. So for example, if you only have one or two small credit cards with a $500 or $1,000 limit, adding a trade line with a $50,000 limit and 10 years of history could completely shift your credit profile. When that trade line posts to your credit report, your overall credit utilization drops, your average age of accounts increase, and your credit mix greatly improves. These are all the major credit factors that make up your score. The result is a potential score increase that can range anywhere from 20 to 80 points, I would say, depending on your individual situation. And this kind of credit improvement can mean the difference between being denied and getting approved, or maybe paying between 21% interest or 7% interest. Now, those interest rates are fictitious, but it does help you understand exactly what I'm trying to convey. Now, let's talk about how it actually works behind the scenes. On Tradeline Supply Company's website, you'll find a full marketplace of trade lines available for purchase. Each listing shows the bank name, the credit limit, the card age, the statement date, the price, and how long it will stay on your credit report, which is usually around 2 reporting cycles or roughly 60 days. When you choose a trade line, you're essentially paying to be added as an authorized user on someone else's existing credit card account. You never receive the physical card, you can't make purchases, and you don't have access to this account whatsoever. You simply benefit from its positive credit history being reflected on your own report. Once added, it usually takes about 2 weeks for the account to appear on your credit report, depending on the credit bureaus and the card issuer's reporting schedule. Tradeline Supply Co will list the reporting period, so you'll have some idea of when to expect the account to start reporting. They also manage the entire process securely. The account owner never sees your personal information, only the name and date of birth required for the authorized user to be added. Everything else is handled privately through the platform. When your trade line expires, it will eventually fall off your report, but the benefit often remains in the form of improved creditworthiness and better lending options for the time that it's reporting. Now, if you end up needing your trade line to stay active on your credit report for longer than 2 reporting cycles, you don't have to buy a new trade line when that time comes up. Tradeline Supply Co does offer unlimited extensions in 1 cycle increments at half the cost of the original purchase price. This process doesn't require a credit check, it doesn't affect your utilization on your own cards, and it doesn't require you to open a new account. So now that we understand who Tradeline Supply Company is, and we also understand the problem that they solve, let's talk about the pros and the cons of using a service like Tradeline Supply Co. Let's start with the pros. We'll first talk about speed. Nothing else in the credit world can produce such a fast impact. If you need a score boost for a specific reason like qualifying for a loan, a rental, or a credit card application, a trade line can deliver fast results in as little as 2 weeks. Second, transparency. Unlike random sellers on Instagram, Tradeline Supply Co lists everything up front: the card age, the limit, the price, the posting schedule. You know exactly what you're getting. And third, security. The company doesn't share your personal details beyond what's required for reporting, and the process is fully managed by professionals who handle thousands of transactions per month. Now for the cons. First, temporary impact. Authorized user trade lines usually stay on your report for about 2 reporting cycles, and once they fall off, your score can dip again, especially if you haven't built your own positive history in the meantime. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to address a few frequently asked questions that I get around this topic. First thing I want to talk about is you can ask a family member to add you on as an authorized user for free. I mentioned that back in my video about buying a car with bad credit and no money down. I had my mom add me on, and if you have a family member do that, if you have the ability to, you don't necessarily have to do this. If you have someone, then that's good. If you don't, well, here's an alternative method. There's also no guarantee that adding trade lines will increase your credit score. Often I hear the following question or a variation of this, something like, I currently have a 520 credit score, but I want to be over 700. Which trade line do you recommend to accomplish this? If someone has a 520 credit score, they probably have some serious derogatory accounts on their credit report. So listen to me, guys. If you have serious derogatory accounts, your credit score will not be at a 700 regardless of which trade line that you add. So in this example, the question itself is flawed since it's more than likely impossible to begin with. Having a high limit authorized user trade line does not automatically guarantee that you will be approved for your own high limit credit cards either. Most banks that offer credit cards will typically also consider your income, your expenses, your credit score, and possibly several other factors relating to your ability to repay debt in order to make a decision on whether or not they are willing to extend you credit. And there is a very big misconception about credit. People think that if you have a higher score, that guarantees approvals. That is definitely not the case. Your credit report is not just your score. It's, do you have the ability to pay back? As I've mentioned in previous videos, it's the same way that if you had a friend who asks to borrow money, and let's say one friend pays you back and they give you a little bit extra, you probably will always lend that friend some money because they always will pay you back with a little bit more. But if you have a friend where he didn't pay back the last 3 people and now he's asking you, you're not gonna let him borrow any money. Credit works the exact same way. It doesn't matter how high your score is. If you have late payments, derogatory information, collections, then that would tell anybody you don't pay back. So of course, they're not going to extend you anything no matter how high your score is. Some credit scoring models don't even take authorized users into account. And newer versions of major models like FICO and Vantage weigh them differently or discount their impact altogether. Now, those were a few things I wanted to cover just to make you aware. The second thing when it comes to Tradeline Supply Co. is cost. While some trade lines start under $200 with high limits and age, there are some that will be around $800 to $1,200 for higher limits and longer age like 10 years or more. That is a lot of money to pay for most people to only have these trade lines report for 1 or 2 months. And third, results vary. Like I said before, if you already have negative items like collections, late payments, or charge-offs, then trade lines might not have much effect at all. It's really best suited for people with thin or fair credit, not heavily damaged reports. So what do customers say about Tradeline Supply Co.? Well, across Trustpilot, the company holds a rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars with hundreds of verified reviews. Most customers praise the professional service, clear communication, and fast results. One reviewer mentioned seeing a 70-point increase within 3 weeks, calling it the best money they ever spent. Another praised the customer service team for answering every question and helping them choose the right trade line for their file. But of course, not every review is perfect. A few people complained that their trade lines did not post as quickly as they expected or that the score boost was smaller than they hoped for. Some didn't understand why the results vary by credit report or scoring model. But overall, the consensus is that Tradeline Supply Company delivers exactly what they promise: legitimate, well-managed, authorized user trade lines that post to your report and help you build or improve credit very quickly. Even on the Better Business Bureau, they maintain a A+ rating with only a small number of resolved complaints, which is impressive for a company in this niche. So when would I actually recommend using Tradeline Supply Company? I'd recommend this for someone who is already on the right track but needs a push. Maybe your credit file is thin, you've got no negatives, and maybe you just need that extra age or that limit to qualify for a better limit credit card or maybe even better financing terms. It's also useful for someone preparing to buy a car. An auto loan is something that's backed by collateral. So just to give you an example, almost anybody can go to a car lot and get qualified for a car as long as they put down a big enough down payment, even if they had the lowest credit score imaginable. So just understand, getting an auto loan is not a very difficult thing to do because of the type of loan that it is. However, when you do this, you'll probably have really bad rates, a very high interest that's going to be predatory, and you'll definitely be paying way more than that car is actually worth. So in this situation, if you had like a 580 credit score and you had a trade line that could boost you up to like 650 or 680, something like that, well, yes, that can help you get a lower interest rate, potentially could help you not even get a down payment if you go through a credit union. It could also potentially help you with the mortgage interest rate depending on the scoring model. Just imagine getting 1% off of a home loan. That could be the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars because home loans are so huge. Like, think about that. If you have a $600,000 home, the difference of 1% to 2% by getting that score boost is definitely worth what? $1,000? Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, you would only need it long enough just to get your pre-approval. So here's how I see it. If you've got the cash and you understand it's a temporary enhancement tool, then a trade line could be a powerful short-term advantage. But, and this is important, I would not recommend it as a substitute for building real credit. If your credit report is full of charge-offs, late payments, or collections, a trade line won't fix that. You need to handle the root of the problem first. I also wouldn't recommend relying on trade lines repeatedly. If you're using them every few months to keep your score up, then you're not actually growing. In that situation, you're just renting someone else's credit strength. And the smart play is to use this strategically, maybe once, then build your own foundation with secured cards, credit builder loans, and consistent positive history. So here are my final thoughts. Trade lines can give you a boost, but they won't make you financially free, and they won't solve the problem of having bad credit. What they can do is open the door for you to get a 70-point boost that could help you get approved for things like your first credit card, a car loan, or even a small business line of credit or business credit card. And once that door opens, it's your job to step through and to step through it wisely. Tradeline Supply Co exists to help people get past the initial barrier, the frustrating stage where your score doesn't reflect your discipline or your effort. But the real success story starts when you take that momentum and you build credit that is actually yours. So yes, you can increase your credit score by 70 points or more with a $50,000 trade line. It's absolutely possible, and many people have done it successfully with companies like Tradeline Supply Co. So if you want to try a trade line, this is the safest and most legitimate place to start, but only do it if you understand the purpose. It's to leverage it, not to live off it, because financial freedom doesn't come from renting someone else's credit. It comes from learning how credit works and mastering it yourself. All right, guys, currently we are on TradelineSupply.com. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out the website. Now, if you wanted to look at a trade line, you can go right to the very top and you can go to buy trade lines. There are package deals and discounts, and there's also a little description here about the package deals. You guys could check that out. If it's available at the time that you're looking to purchase one, it's available now as I record this video. Now, if we keep scrolling down, you can actually see the bank. You can see the card ID, you can see the credit limit, you can also see the date opened as well as the purchase deadline. The purchase deadline has to do with the reporting period, so you want to make sure to get it by a certain date. That way it'll report in this range, and then it lets you know the availability as well as the price. So if we keep scrolling down, we can see multiple trade lines with high limits, and they also will give you the age of the trade line when you click on it. But there's one thing that you always want to keep in mind. I think that age is more important than just the credit limit. So if you wanted to get a good balance, I would look for something with a fairly decent age and then a fairly decent limit to match. So for example, here is a Chase credit card with a $50,000 limit. Now, even though it has a $50,000 limit, it's only as old as July 2022, which really isn't much age. You'll get about roughly 3 years, a little bit more than that, out of this account, and it's $994.50. Now, there are other ones, like for example, there's a Chase 45,000 with a 2017 and January account age. That's a little bit better, and it's the exact same price. I would prefer to pick something that has this type of age as opposed to just getting something with a slightly higher limit, especially if they're both the same price. And you guys can scroll down and you can see which one would work best for you. Again, there's so many trade lines, there's so many prices. Some are even higher, like as you can see here, $1,404. If you notice, the older the age of the account, the more expensive it actually is. That kind of lets you know age is more important than the actual limit itself. So always take that into consideration when you're trying to pick a trade line. And then when you're ready, you can add it to your cart, and it'll let you know all of the required documents that you need at checkout: your driver's license, your social. You'll also need some more information, so you'll want to make sure that you add that. And then one more thing to note, they don't sell trade lines in Georgia, so you do want to be aware of that. That's right here at the very top. Definitely take that into account. So unfortunately, if you're in Georgia, you cannot do this, but there are other websites that can also do this too. You also want to ensure that any fraud alerts or credit freezes are removed from the credit bureaus before placing an order for a trade line, or they will not post. You will also not be refunded, so you want to make sure to read this. Again, always read all the details. And if you have any other questions, I recommend going to the website or contacting them. That's one of the best things that you can do. You know, give them a phone call, ask them about their services, what their experiences are. It's always nice to talk to someone about this. And once again, this is not financial advice. I'm just giving you some educational information for educational and entertainment purposes only. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully this explanation made everything crystal clear and gave you a much better understanding of what trade lines are, who Tradeline Supply Company is, is and the kind of impact that it can really have on your credit. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who's working on improving their credit too. They might need this information. And if you want to go even deeper, check out some of the links in my description. I have guides, I also have credit repair playlists, anything that you need in order to help you actually accumulate wealth and to get on the right track financially. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video, and you guys have a wonderful day.